It is the day of the full moon in the month of Baisakh. Shamans of various caste origins and from various villages come together at this sacred spot on a mountain top in East Nepal, beside a sacred pond, to meet the gods and to ask them for power. Power they need as healers in order to avert disease and evil from the people. The picture of a homogeneous occupational group joined in solidarity is deceptive, however. As soon as they descend back into the valley, the shamans go their separate ways. The rest of the year they are engaged independently in healing sessions held only at night. Each shaman has his own style. They compete for clients and occasionally they fight one another using magic techniques. On the same day, a festival in which the local shamans play an important role is held among the Rai in the village of Bala in the Sankhua Valley. At one main shrine, inhabitants of the village offer sacrifices to the deity Khembalung, who is regarded as a form of Shiva. Various offering gifts are presented: millet beer, rice grains, figures called torma, formed from flour and butter. Throwing off the pieces of torma in all four cardinal directions is said to ward off hail, which is controlled by certain ancestral beings. This food is given to satisfy them. Shamans are mediators between humans on the one hand and deities, ancestral beings and spirits of the dead on the other. It is this ability that enables them to heal the sick. Parallel to this cult, at a local stupa known as Bauddha, a Sherpa Lama makes offerings in honor of those who have recently died. During the course of their recent history, the Rai have increasingly borrowed elements from the major religions they have had contact with, as here from Lamaist Buddhism or in other cases from Nepalese Hinduism, without, however, renouncing their own tribal traditions. Here, gifts are offered, above all fruits, fried bread rings and rice, as well as local beer and liquor. The prevailing mood of the festival, in which the ancestors take part, is one of relaxed enjoyment. No sharp difference is made between the sacred and the profane. The gifts are eventually distributed among the participants as presents from the ancestors. The initiated ritual specialists, however, are not the only ones able to communicate with the world of the ancestors. During a normal burial, the funeral procession is led by a brother-in-law of the deceased. He drives away the evil spirits of the dead with bow and arrow to keep them from gaining possession of the soul of the recently deceased and making it one of them. Food and personal objects are put into the grave for the journey to the beyond. Spraying with ritually pure water forces the rapacious spirits to keep their distance. The presence of village elders is important during a burial. Members of this age group are particularly qualified to address the soul of the deceased and to urge it to make an orderly passage into the beyond and not to associate with dangerous spirits. In order to purify themselves from the taint of death, those who have assisted in the mourning ceremony visit the nearest water source. The constant presence of the various ancestral beings and the potential danger arising from them are the determining factors for a large part of the ritual life of the Rai, one of the oldest ethnic groups of Nepal. One of the duties of a household head is to make regular offerings to those of his ancestors whose names are remembered in his lineage. But the older, deified ancestral beings may be worshipped only by a special category of priests. As is done during this offering, in honor of the snake deity Lukwamang, a portion of the offering gifts comprising meat and millet beer is distributed at the end to the participants. One of the ancestral deities is Nagi, likewise a snake deity. In the creation myths of many Rai, the snake is considered the first being, the one that was the source of all creation. It is consequently viewed as the original ancestor of mankind. In order to make an offering to the snake deity, the priest journeys northwards in his songs to the headwaters of the Sankua, where he presents his gifts and practices divination. Upon his return home, beer is offered up to the hearth, the seat of the ancestors. The gifts offered to Nagi are part of a trade-off. They buy, so it is said, the raising of fallen head souls, and thereby invigorate and revitalize the inhabitants of the house. At the conclusion, a sword dance and a ritual exchange of local liquor takes place. By means of the dance, the people demonstrate the fearlessness and power they have won, and with the blade sever the last of the remaining evil. The territorial beings form a second group of ancestral deities. These divine ancestors are the true owners of inhabited territory, the cultivated croplands and the wilderness of the surrounding forests. According to the foundation myth of the village of Bala, the first settlers were the Sampange Rai, members of a Rai group who today live further to the south. They came into the Sangkwa Valley and settled in the region of Bala at an early period when forests were still being burnt back and millet sown in the fertile ashes. In Bala, the soil was rich and the water good. Good soil and good water are the criteria that determine the quality of an area of habitation. In order to honor the spirit of the soil, the Sampange set up an ancestral stone and made offerings to it. But the Sampange, according to the myth of the Mewahang Rai, who came later, were unable to pay homage to the spirit of the soil in the proper manner. And so, Yungtu Raja, the founding father of the present-day Mewahang of Bala, drove the Sampange away. It was only they, the Mewahang, who knew the proper language for talking to the spirit of the soil, and thus it is they alone who are the rightful owners of the land. The daughter of that legendary Yungtu, the founding ancestor of Bala, met with an extraordinary fate. She was killed, it is said, by the spirit of the hunt in order that she might become one of his kind, so that he could marry her. From that time on, the spirit of that dead woman has been wandering about the region of Bala and manipulating the fates of local inhabitants. She is Balme, the old woman of Bala, and it is up to this divine ancestor whether the households in Bala achieve prosperity or remain poor, whether their crops are successful or destroyed by bad weather, whether the people are healthy and strong or plagued by disease and trouble. At least twice a year, once in spring and once in autumn, each household must celebrate a double ritual for its own protection and as a precautionary measure. In the afternoon, a deva, a blood sacrifice in honor of the territorial ancestor deities and the spirit of the hunt, and the same night, a chinta, a shamanistic seance lasting up to early morning. Deva means deity, and the word chinta may be translated as thought and refers to the shaman's divinatory powers. However, the methods for obtaining contact with the deities, some of whom are identical in both rituals, differ fundamentally from one ritual to the other. In the case of the deva, the sacrificial priest goes on a ritual journey to the deities, whereas in that of the night time, chinta, it is the deities who come to the shaman into his body. Various gifts are set up in a symbolical order on the altar for the deva. For the blood sacrifice, one chicken is allotted to each deity. The cock is for the male spirit of the hunt, who has one part of the altar set aside for him. Whether or not to sacrifice an additional animal, as in this case a pig for balme, is up to the individual household. According to needs and means, a sheep or merely a young pig or even nothing other than the chickens may be sacrificed. Once the priest has driven off the hungry spirits from the sacrificial grounds, he sets about summoning the territorial deities. Fidisai, so the priest's name, is a Khambu Rai and comes from a neighboring settlement close to this village of Mewahang Rai. Although Khambu Rai and Mewahang Rai speak different languages, it's not uncommon, as in this case, for Khambu ritual specialists to be called in by Mewahang client households. The mother and the daughter of the household are the sufferers for whose sake the sacrifice is performed. The sick pair lay objects like jewelry and clothing on the altar to be sanctified. Such objects later provide them with strength and protection. Finally, the priest sets off on the ritual journey to the deities, modulating the rhythm of his song along the way and calling out the stations of his itinerary. When he arrives in the upper river valley of the Sankua, he shows, as it is said, the gifts to the territorial beings residing there and informs them of the blood sacrifice. The fallen head souls of the pair are redeemed by the sacrifice of the animals. The life spirit of the sacrificial animals is thus exchanged for the life force of the living. Before the sacrificial animals are killed, the deities must signal that they have accepted the animals. Only when the animals have shaken their heads at being sprinkled in consecration with ritually pure water and rice is the deity's acceptance of the sacrificial gift assured. If there is no shaking of the head, another animal must be chosen. The exchange of life forces between the sacrificial animal and the sick person is symbolically expressed in the gestures used in the consecration. The soul of the gifts transforms the soul of the sufferer. The daughter has been suffering for some time from a chronic skin disease, as a result of which she has still not been given in marriage. The priest holds the territorial deity of Yapu village, the old woman of Yapu, responsible for this disease. No blood is supposed to flow when the pig is killed. A well-placed stab to the heart ought to cause death quickly. But this is not always the case, and so the wound, gapping after repeated attempts, must be closed with charcoal and the blood made to clot. The sacrificed animals are now cut up finely. One portion of the meat, consisting of the right limbs, is prepared over the fire and later placed on the altar alongside the other gifts. When all is over, this meat can be taken by the priest as part of his wages. The rest of the meat is boiled and can be consumed at the conclusion by the participants, with part of it again being presented on the altar. In the meantime, the priest travels back down the Sankwa Valley. In order to offer the gifts in their entirety, the priest later sets out on another journey to the deities. The route is the same as it was the first time. A special trip is necessary for making offerings to the territorial deity of Yapu, as she resides not in the northwest but at a place to the east. Together with a chicken, an egg is offered in the name of the spirit of the hunt. Fidisai, who is a priest and shaman, once explained that one of his last questions in his life was the following: what is more valuable as an offering gift, the grown chicken or the egg that bears within it all potentiality? The egg is inspected with an eye to divination. The future can be foretold from the quality of the yolk. After the journey has ended, the altar is dismantled by the assistant. The beer in the gourds and the gifts for the spirit of the hunt go to the priest along with the portions of meat. The sick person's personal clothing is returned at the conclusion, cleansed and sanctified. The offering gifts are now imbued with magical power. The boiled rice, the beans, ginger and pumpkin are regarded now as prasad, a present from the deities, food that has been made holy. It is given first to the sick persons and afterwards distributed to all those in attendance. After the evening meal, preparations begin for the shamanistic seance, the chinta. This is regarded as a follow-up to the deva, even though the two rituals can take place independently of each other. Their combination, however, is regarded as particularly effective. The main assistant, in this case the son of the shaman Fidisai, is again responsible for erecting the altar, this time on the veranda. The center of the altar is a construction of banana stalks, bamboo wands with frilled ends and feathers. In front of it are placed various horns and antlers, symbols of the hunt. In the middle is set an iron trident, the emblem of the god Shiva, who is looked upon as the guardian deity of shamans. The altar may be interpreted as a kind of bridge between the worlds. It consists of objects that are pleasing to the tending deities and attract their interest. On the altar are found necklaces of Rudraksha seeds, the pure light of oil lamps, metal vessels containing ritual water and purifying leaves, magic bamboo wands with filled ends, incense, magical stones, meteorites, crystals, a conch shell that can be sounded, a sickle for use as a weapon against the spirits, the double-sided drum. The shaman must protect himself in a variety of ways in preparation for his contact with the spirit beings. As if he were donning armor, he puts on the clothes of a shaman and on certain parts of the body fixes leaves from the tree of life, a kind of chestnut regarded as purificatory. To fortify himself, he inhales the power inhering in ginger stems. He arms himself further with a belt of belts. First, the altar is consecrated in order to secure the arrival of the attending deities. To drive off the rapacious spirits of the dead, the shaman throws grains of rice into the air. This is given to them as their share of food. With a welcoming gesture, Fidisai pays homage to the altar as the symbolic seat of the attendant deities. In order to purify his utensils, he washes them in ritually pure water. The necklace of Rudraksha seeds and the bamboo wands, which are used as magical instruments. The drum, too, must be separately consecrated and purified with leaves to develop its magic potency. A picture of the symbolic trident is drawn with ashes, that the drum might bear within it the power of Shiva. The rhythmic tone of the drum delights the attending deities. The shaman addresses them and asks them to come. Fidisai lays on the altar a necklace made out of the vertebrae of a snake for presentation to the attending deities. Smelling the necklace and counting the seeds is an important part of divination. Depending on the smell and on whether an odd or even number of seeds have been counted within a randomly chosen section, the shaman can see into the future of the client's house. For further protection against the evil spirits, he puts the necklaces on himself and on the drum assistants. Since his assistants are likewise exposed to the dangers of the spirits of the dead, Fidisai blesses them with grains of rice. The metal food bowl is another important instrument of shamans. It serves both as a magic shield to ward off evil forces and as a rhythmical instrument to flatter the deities. The grains of rice over which the shaman has spoken mantras turn into magic substances to protect the parts of the body especially prone to danger. The spirits of the dead are kept away from the altar and banned with the aid of feather arrows. Once the shaman, with the growing support of the tutelary deities attending him, has gained control over the rapacious spirits and has armed his own body and those of his helpers against harmful influences, he can begin to demonstrate the superhuman power he has now attained. He is now able to touch an incandescent iron spoon with his tongue without sustaining injury. On the basis of dancing rice grains, he can make divinations concerning the state of the patient. It is a good sign when they are quick to jump down, but a bad one if they are slow and hesitant. By looking through a hollow tiger bone, he is able to spot witches and roving spirits of the dead. The dance of the shamans, like the rhythms of the drum, is meant to delight and flatter the attending deities. The deities are constantly conjured to appear and to give their support in the battle against hostile beings. The tension increases noticeably, and Aitabari, the attending deity first called upon by Fidisai, slowly begins to take possession of him. Possession in this ambivalent phase, in which the shaman is partially himself but already partially the deity, is still uncontrolled. By means of the movements of Fidisai's body and utterances from his mouth, the deity signals that local impurities are still keeping him from fully appearing to the shaman. The assistant immediately begins to sprinkle purified milk. In addition, he cleanses the shaman's head with milk and later also with mugwort leaves. the request of the deity, the helper gives him ritually pure water to drink. All those present now wait in suspense for the moment when the attending deity takes full possession of the shaman and through his song reveals the current condition of the future of the household. While attending deity Aitabare is speaking through the body of Fidisai, those present, particularly the village elders, can pose questions to the deity directly.
संसारी माजी खोकी माजी दुमकी माजी सोला माजी कंसी माई प्यार माई को रज बातो ए मनो से बात सिगते
Fidisai diagnoses the fundamental problem as being the fact that the son of the house has not detached himself from the parental household. The son does not want to build his own house. However, since he can take over the parental house once his mother dies. Thus, for the time being, he has constructed a temporary addition to the already existing house with a hearth of its own. But such an ambivalent state of affairs harbors certain dangers, which the shaman formulates in so many words.
लो परमेश्वरी के देखिन्छ कसो देखिन्छ है परमेश्वरी साक्षात्ति कहिदिनु पर्यो परमेश्वरी
The second deity attending Fidisai, the spirit of the hunt, likewise takes possession of the shaman, and the round of diagnostic questions and answers is repeated. By this means, the oracle becomes to a certain extent verifiable. However, it is not a matter here of objectivity. An air of ambiguity surrounds everything. The shaman's allusions admit of various interpretations, so that everyone present must arrive at his own diagnosis.
Nakali rani sunai rani balasaru puni bauta milindoi nahola isai grema. Ola parmeshwari ami ke jano nahi parmeshwari parmeshwara. Desai ko karuna bato manuje bauta graha kore to base kola. E manuje hani noksani puni isai grema to bhai base kocha to paya lechimi puni. Lo parmeshwari. Her manuje isai grema to angni lai puni utai dinsa sangkasa turi. E chutai de bane ta to bonako salo eto dekincho. Lo parmeshwari. E manuje raja onte pune to
The next sacrifice performed is for Nolo Sansari, a goddess who brings illness, particularly upon children, plaguing them with colds, diarrhea, and skin eruptions. The assistant distributes grains of rice and afterwards also wicks for lighting. Those present, particularly women with children, throw them onto a leaf plate containing 7 flowers. With the aid of these gifts, the goddess's evil influence may be averted. Pidisai dances with the leaf plate and the burning wicks in order to conduct the goddess off in a friendly manner. Those seeking protection receive a tika mark on their forehead as a blessing. Afterwards, the offering gifts are taken away by the helpers to a cool spot, that is, to a water source or crossroads. The people say that the shaman sends the goddess back to the cities where she comes from, in order that she not cause any more damage. The whirling of the branches of the tree of life is of divinatory significance. If the branch breaks, this is a favorable sign. If it doesn't, misfortune is near at hand. With this dancing, the shaman flatters the territorial ancestor deities and the spirit of the hunt, who received sacrifices in the afternoon during the Deva. These deities must be put in a favorable mood, as they are able to endow the shaman with superhuman powers. By means of the oracle of the branches, the shaman asks whether the blood sacrifice of the afternoon has actually been accepted. In the following phase, the territorial ancestor deities are presented with offering gifts while being simultaneously praised in song. This time, however, they are not delighted with a blood sacrifice, rather the gifts are brought by being shown to them. For gifts, one requires beer in 7 gourds as well as 7 leaf plates containing rice and ginger. The drum, tied down in place, is now beaten by 2 helpers to a different kind of rhythm. The shaman calls the deities into the drum. The dance is intended to delight the deities, for no healing is later possible without their support. Pidisai offers his presence on the drum, which now functions as a sort of altar. The 7 gift portions are served up by a helper, one by one, and shown by the shaman to the individual deities, while a characteristic rhythm is beaten out for each. Alongside the 5 territorial deities, there are also the spirit of the hunt and the spirit of birdlime. The gift portions are later retrieved from the deities and henceforth belong to the shaman. One of the deities, Poyome, is shown the sickle, for she carried such a tool, it is said, in primeval times. Here again, showing is an act of flattery. At the conclusion of this phase, Fidisai catches the bird lion, which for the uninitiated is invisible. Evil spirits can be caught with it, even as birds are caught with real bird lion. The invisible magic substance is dangerous, however, and can cause blindness. The shaman places it in the beam of the projecting roof to protect the house and later removes it. Fidisai drives away the last remaining spirits by plucking leaves of the tree of life. The break that follows is the last before the seance nears its midnight climax. A lizard plays an important role in what follows. Fidisai recites a myth in order to explain its significance. In the former age of gold, the Satya Yuga, the lizard was a king and ruled over a kingdom. But it was this creature that brought death upon mankind, and so it lost its kingdom, and in the present dark age it has the task of bearing evil. The matter at hand is the destruction of unfavorable constellations or planets. The bad influences are supposed to be driven out of the house. For this purpose, an offering is given to Yamaraj, the king of death. He is embodied in the mandala-like drawing executed in ash in the courtyard of the house. Among the offering gifts for the god of death, along with the lizard, are the 7 kinds of cereals that stand for the totality of nutrient grains, and also walnuts and chestnuts, which are held to be the god's bones. banana tree, standing in the center of the figure of Yamraj, is connected by string to a branch of a wild cherry tree held by the two main sufferers on the veranda. This string forms a bridge over which the shaman sends the evil influences out of the house to be banished into the banana tree. The burning wicks laid by the occupants of the house on the offering plate and waved back and forth over their heads by the shaman serve the purpose of exercising the influences of the planets and raising the head souls. The fated constellation is said to be exchanged or transferred. Purifying water dripped over the sufferers onto glowing charcoal aids in the expulsion of the evil forces. The lizard, the mediator in this transfer of forces, is hung in the middle of the string. Fidisai exercises the forces and dispatches them into the string. The exorcism gets nearer and nearer to the climactic point. The offering plate is taken out to the banana tree. And finally, the moment awaited by everyone with great suspense. The shaman tears the string in two and throws it, along with the branch of the cherry tree, out into the courtyard. In the same instant, one helper belonging to the category of wife receivers chops down the banana tree with a powerful blow. With that, the magic tie is broken. The future can be foretold by studying the surface of the cut on the banana tree. If a new shoot is visible, this is a good sign. If it is rotten, the indications are bad. The lizard has done its duty and can be cured. Quite often, however, it is simply released. All gifts, as well as the felled tree, are immediately cleared away by the helpers and taken to a cool spot next to a water source. There, in addition, pegs are driven into the ground to tie down the roaming spirits of the dead. As compensation for their defiling activities, the helpers who have cleared away the banana tree and gifts receive the blessing of a tika from the shaman. After this decisive phase of the session, the mood eases noticeably. A fairly long break follows. The people drink beer and talk. Some of the guests go home, a few lie down to sleep for a while.
अब हजुर अब सकेको पनि हो अब त केही छैन अब तपाईले त्यो देउताहरू पकाउँदै यसो हुन्छ काटे अब छुट्टारा हुन्छ अब हामीले गरेको चाहिँ त्यति मात्रै त्यो आशा त्यो झारफुक गरेको त्यो ऋषिमा सुन्छ भने अहिले सुनिहाल्यो त्यही हामी बोलाउँछु त्यही बाटो नै हामी उल्टो काट्छु उब्रन्छ छैन अनि त्यो बैठ्याउनु मात्र हाम्रो काम अब छ त्यो देउताहरू अब जति बोलाएको त्यति है अब तिम्रो अब जानु तिम्रो सन्तानमा बस्नु भन्ने त्यति मात्र हाम्रो मतलब छ अब छैन.
Fidi Sai, who betrays no sign of fatigue, falls to telling stories.
त्यो शिरमा गुलो गर्ने अब मान्छे त चाहियो छैन मान्छे भापो अब गर्छ मान्छे थिएन त्यहाँदेखि कुखुरा झारिदियो पौवामा झारे हो यमुना त मेरो होती लिपले नै झारे पौवामा झारेपछि त पौवामा अन्य त्यत्रोको गुलो गर्छ यताम पन्साउँछ उताम पन्साउँछ पोलो गरेकोमा त्यो अन्न त सकिदियो ल भएन अब छममा झारिदिनु पर्यो भनेर अघि सुँगुर काटे नि हो त्यही झारेछ हो कि होइन तर मतलब बुझ्यो है त्यहाँदेखि त्यो झारेपछि त्यसले पनि गुलो गरेन त्यहाँदेखि केही लागेन अब दिलीपको त केही लागेन त्यहाँदेखि त सुँगुरले म पौलो गरेर उताम पन्सायो त्यो अन्न त जम्मै अलपत्र बनायो है ओछाङ्ग सिसान सम निना मङ्गरी मङ्ग आई दिना मयान्ची ओ मङ्ग छिन मङ्ग कौने असिङको लप्छा यो भन कि दिना मयङ छु देवको मयङ छु म असै जुरेमासी हामी यो म भनेछ त्यति बेला हरेनले भनिदिएछ ओछाङ्ग सिसानसम्म खुङ्गरी सियो बाइन हो देना त गए अनामीको मात्रै म मेरो का खुङको सुरेनमा मिते भनिदिएछ हाम्रो पुरा भाषा है आफ्नो भाषामा तपाईँले बुझेको हुन्छ होला हाम्रो भाषा पनि मामुनी हामी कुलुङ्गे है जिमीहरू यिनीहरू हो म कुलुङ्गे हो हाम्रो कुलुङ्गे यो शिवादेखि हाम्रो कुलुङ्गे गाउँ यो यहाँदेखि यता जम्मै कुलुङ्गे गाउँ यो बाला यति उभतलमा पनि आधी कुलुङ्गे गाउँ छ अनि 4 घर 5 घर मात्रै जिमदार छ यहाँदेखि मगरुक सोती तल त्यो फिर्के बुधबारेसम्म जिमदार छ अनि ताम्बु छ अनि कुलुङमा कोही छ बढी हामी कुलुङ्गे नै छौँ हाम्रो समृद्धिमा यता जापो स्वयंतिर कोही अब जिमदारहरू छ त्यहाँदेखि त त्यो निनामृदमले त्यो भनेछ त्यहाँदेखि त भैता रहँदा त अब हरेम त्यो छाँगा अब हरेमकै कथा मैले निनामृदम अब पुरा yung हरेम अब हरेमले जन्माएको मैले कथा गरेँ छाँगा त्यो हावाको बच्चा कार्यो त्यहाँदेखि निनामृदम हरेम निनामृदम दौकित वर्जन त्यहाँदेखि निनामृदम अब फेरि उसको सिङको लाप्चा आपछि त त्यहाँदेखि त त्यहाँ झोल खुवाइदिन्छ नि त्यो झोल खुवाइदिएपछि त अब भुँडी ड्याम्मै भइगएछ त्यहाँ अब गर्भ बोकिहाले रहेछ पेटमा है सब हो कि होइन मिल्छ मिल्दैन
मिल्छ पुरा मिल्छ
तर म त छैन त्यहाँदेखि त आखेरीमा त अब बोकचिर गर्दा आखेरी पर्यो त्यहाँ निनाम आखेरी पर्दाखेरि त ए भगवान् म के भयो बिमार भएछ अब त्यहाँदेखि ए चिन्चो सय बुप्पा अरे बुप्पा कङ्ने मिना लजाऊ त लजा मिना जक्ष हो देना त समय खुल्म चाहिँ नाइ कङ मिना जक्ष भन भनेछ कुन बेथाले मलाई बिमार भयौँ लौ अब बोक गरिदेऊ चिर गरिदेऊ कति सब गरिदेऊ भन्ने कुरा धामीमा लैजाऊ यो लासै भन्ने कुरा गरेछ त्यहाँदेखि
After the break, the actual healing ceremonies for individual patients begin. The mother of the house is haunted by the shadow of her deceased husband. In his song, the healer refers to the origin myth, which tells of how the spirits of the dead came into being. By such flattery and recognition of the common beginnings, the spirit is persuaded to leave the living alone and to return to where he came from. The cutting of the leaves with a sickle is a threat to the spirits of the dead. It is a demonstration of the shaman's strength and power. The spirits of the dead can also be driven off with the aid of the burning branches of the tree of life. The magical bamboo wands serve as instruments to treat diseases. With them, the diseases are sucked or drawn out. For purposes of divination, the healer counts the kernels of a portion of the necklace. Healing techniques vary markedly from shaman to shaman. The contact with attending deities is based on an entirely personal initiatory experience, during which the deity takes possession of the would-be shaman without his being able to exercise any control. He has visions, starts talking nonsense, or suffers an illness or some other existential crisis. It is only then that a teacher is brought in to show the neophyte how he can control the situation. This teacher, or guru, also passes on the various healing techniques. Since every shaman can inevitably call upon the advice of several gurus, each one arrives at an individual combination of experience and knowledge. The voice of the shamans and priests, however, the intonation of the songs, is held to be a matter of inspiration, a gift of the ancestors and something that cannot be learned. It comes by itself. Hence, the fear on the part of the elders expressed half in jest that our tape recordings might silence the ancestors' voices. The incandescent iron spoon is likewise one of the magical instruments. It is used along with branches of the tree of life to purify the sick persons from evil influences. With a glance through the hollow tiger bone, Fidisai is able to discern the causes of the illness. The gourds of beer shown to the territorial deities at the beginning are presented to them once more and then returned to everyday use. Bunte, the son of the house, is mentally a bit on the lazy side. The spirit of an accident victim winds invisible pieces of string around his head. Were they not removed by the shaman, the sufferer would likewise die in an accident. One method of treatment is inversion. Liquor is prepared with the incandescent iron spoon and given to the sufferer to drink. This is medicine for worms, stomach aches and toothaches. After that, the drinking cup is turned upside down. The patient's condition is supposed to undergo the same change. Fidisai recognizes impurities in the mouth of Bunte's female cousin, and these he now removes. She also suffers from stomach pains and now undergoes treatment for them. Fidisai diagnoses the cause as being the influence of a witch. Women on the way to the weekly market attempt to take advantage of the situation and sell local beer and liquor. At the conclusion of the treatments, the altar is dismantled. The Guru deities can now be sent back to where they live. Fidisai takes off his shamanistic trappings and returns to his normal activities. While the actual shamanistic session has now ended, the ritual sequence of Deva and Chinta must be rounded off with a blood sacrifice to raise the head souls. For this purpose, 2 chickens are killed by a blow to their necks. Divinations as to how successful the treatment will prove can be made from the blood that flows out of their beaks. But all divinations are hesitant approaches to the truth. There is no one conclusive diagnosis. There is only a continuing process of forming interpretations and interpretations of interpretations.